corn, beans, and squash. That is the entire pot you are looking at. And a pot like that one carried whole households from October clear through to spring. The old accounts are full of meals built the same way. 3 things and nothing else. No spice rack and no store in it. What nobody tells you about these 3-ingredient meals is that the 3rd ingredient was often not food at all. It was the thing your kitchen scrapes into the trash every week. 20 of them. And by number 10, you will know exactly what it was. How does a pot with 3 things in it feed people all winter? Here's the first one. Number 1, sofkey, cracked white corn, a lot of water, and a handful of clean wood ash. That is the whole list. Across the southeast, a pot of sofkey sat on the fire from morning until dark, and anybody who came through the door helped themselves out of it with a long wooden spoon. The Oklahoma Historical Society's account of the dish is blunt about the method. White cracked corn, cooked in a large amount of water that also holds lye made from wood ash, and no other seasoning at all. 3 to 4 hours over the coals. Let it stand a day or 2, and it goes sour. And among the Muskogee and the Seminole, the sour version is the one people ask for by name. Now hold on to that ash, because it looks like garbage, and it is the most important thing in this entire video. I will show you why at number 10. I'm Wes Kingfisher. What I bring you comes from the old accounts, the skills native peoples used on this land for thousands of years, gathered from historical records and traditional knowledge, and told the way an elder would tell it, plain, slow, and in the right order. The old ones knew things we've nearly forgotten. So listen close. Number 2, no kihik, the meal that walked 100 miles. Parched corn ground to meal, cold water, and a small basket to carry it in. Roger Williams wrote his dictionary of the Narragansett language in 1643, and he set this one down because he lived on it. He called it a ready, very wholesome food. He described traveling with close to 200 people at once near 100 miles through the woods, every man carrying a little basket of this meal at his back, and that basket held enough for 3 or 4 days. He said a spoonful of the meal and a spoonful of water out of the brook made him many a good dinner. Think about what that means. No cooking at the other end, no fire needed, no pot. The corn was already cooked before anybody set out, because parching over a fire drives the water out and kills what would otherwise spoil it. The fire was the 3rd ingredient, spent days earlier. Number 3, sikwatage, whole corn boiled soft, beans and a piece of fat. Williams lists boiled whole corn and beans right next to each other in that same book, and the English mouth turned that first word into succotash, which is on grocery shelves to this day in a can. The version in the accounts is not a side dish. It is supper. The corn goes in first and takes the longest, the beans go in behind it, and the fat carries the whole thing, so it actually sticks with a working body. Corn is short on some of what a person needs, and beans carry exactly what corn is short on, which is why these two show up in the same pot from the Atlantic to the Missouri River, cooked by people who never met each other. Now, suppers built like that one are the whole subject of the Native American way of the kitchen, the cooking half of the old knowledge, set down plain so the dishes don't get lost, along with the cooks who cooked them. 10 chapters in 3 parts, running from the cook fire and reading heat without a dial, through the hominy and the cornbread taken the old 3-step way, the 3 sisters in one pot, the venison and the fish cooked clean, the smokehouse and the crocks on the shelf. It is for anybody who has been paying store prices for suppers their own ground would hand them. One book against a shelf of cookbooks that all begin at the grocery store. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera. the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up. Give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. While the eastern pots were doing all that, the plains and the woodlands had answers of their own, and some of them do not need a pot at all. Number 4, nasomp, pounded corn, water, and whatever the season handed you. This is the unparched cousin of number 2, corn beaten in a wooden mortar and boiled slow into a thick pottage. Williams recorded it as the everyday dish, and the English borrowed the word as somp, which is still spoken in parts of New England, eaten hot in the morning and cold out of the same bowl at midday. The season decided the third thing: berries in the summer, dried squash in the winter, a fish out of the creek if somebody had luck. Number 5, corn balls, parched corn, roasted fat, and a mortar to marry them in. Buffalo Bird Woman was a Hidatsa gardener, born about 1839, and in 1917 she dictated her whole year of gardening and cooking to a man who wrote it down word for word. She described putting shelled corn in a clay pot on the fire, stirring it with a stick until the kernels popped open, roasting fat on the point of a stick beside it, then pounding the two together in the corn mortar. The oily meal holds together in your hand as a lump. That is the recipe. 2 ingredients and your own 2 hands, and she says a mother would send corn balls with her daughter as a present for the daughter's husband. Number 6, sunflower seed balls. Parched sunflower seed, its own oil, and nothing else whatsoever. Same book, same woman. She parched the seeds, pounded them fine, took a handful, squeezed it in her palm, and shook it gently between her 2 hands until the oil came out of the meal and cemented the lump firm. She noted something a modern food scientist would not add. Seed that had been frosted gave up more oil than seed gathered before the frost, so they would deliberately set the threshed seed outdoors to freeze. She said every warrior carried a soft skin bag at his left side, and in the bottom of that bag sat one of these balls wrapped in a piece of hide to nibble when weariness came on him. This is where the pattern starts to show itself, by the way: fire or frost or ash. In nearly every one of these, the third ingredient is something free that had already happened to the food before anybody got hungry. Number 7, banaha, cornmeal, water, and a corn shuck. The Choctaw Nation's own account of its foodways lays it out plainly. Cornmeal mixed with pea hull ash and water into a dough, formed into masses, wrapped in green corn husk, tied, and dropped in boiling water. Beans can go in the dough if you have them. The Chickasaw version boils about 40 minutes. There's a related one called Oksak Adahap where hickory nut meat goes in instead of the beans. The husk is not packaging. It is the cooking vessel. It holds the shape. It keeps the water out, and it grew on the same stalk as the meal inside it. Number 8, Cherokee bean bread, hominy meal, cooked beans, and hickory leaves. The bakers soak corn kernels in hickory ash and water, work the tough outer shells off, grind what is left, then mix in cooked beans and water into a heavy wet dumpling. The hard part is the wrapping. Soaked hickory leaves or corn husks go around it, tied shut with a strip of young river grass, and the seal has to be tight because the whole parcel goes into a kettle and boils about an hour. Get the seal wrong and you have boiled bean soup and a lesson. Number 9, canucci, hickory nuts, boiling water, and hominy. Canucci is a Cherokee word for a hickory nut soup, and the work in it is all up front. The nuts are gathered in October and dried for a few weeks. Then the whole nut gets pounded, shell and all, in a hollowed log until it will hold together as a ball about 3 inches across, and that ball keeps in a cold place for a long time. When you want the soup, you drop the ball in boiling water, break it up, and strain the shell out. What comes through is thick and creamy and rich as anything you've ever put in your mouth. Then the hominy goes in. 10,000 years of testing. That is the guarantee on that one. Number 10, hominy and the reason the ash was there. Ripe corn, hardwood ashes, and water. Here's the payoff on the loop from number 1. Buffalo Bird Woman described collecting about a quart of ashes, cottonwood or elm only, boiling them in water, letting them settle, pouring the clear lye off, then boiling shelled dried corn in that lye until the hulls came loose and the kernels went white. Then wash it again, rubbing the kernels between your palms. Then cook it fresh with beans and fat. The Haudenosaunee do it with hardwood ash, the Muskogee with wood ash lye, the Choctaw call the result tafala, and the Navajo use juniper. Every one of them independently put ash in with the corn. And here is what that ash was doing, which nobody understood until the 1930s. Corn holds a nutrient your body needs, but it is locked up in a form you cannot absorb. Alkaline treatment, which is exactly what wood ash in water is, breaks that lock and frees it. Now look what happened when corn crossed the ocean without the ash. Between 1907 and 1940, by the count of the National Institutes of Health, roughly 3 million Americans came down with pellagra, and about 100,000 of them died, most of them poor Southerners living on corn. The Encyclopedia of Arkansas puts the mechanism plainly. The native practice of soaking and cooking corn in an alkaline solution made that nutrient available. The knowledge was already here. It was simply not carried across with the crop. I am telling you history, not making you any promise about your health, and nobody should treat a bowl of hominy as medicine. And one hard caution before anybody tries this at home: lye is caustic and will burn you. Follow current tested guidelines for making hominy from your extension service or a tested modern source, and not folklore off a video. Number 11, corn soup, hulled white corn, beans, and smoked meat. This is the Haudenosaunee pot, and among the Oneida, it is described as an all-day affair. The corn is boiled with hardwood ashes for hours until the hulls slip, then rinsed hard, then cooked again with kidney or pinto beans and pork. It was traditionally built on smoked fish before pork was in the picture. And there is a detail worth keeping. At community gatherings, the soup goes out to the elders first, as a plain acknowledgement of the work they do. That is a recipe instruction as much as the beans are. Number 12, tafala soured on purpose, hominy, a warm corner, and time. The Choctaw account describes sour hominy, tafala hawushko, made by keeping cooked hominy in a warm place until it sours. That is the entire method. Nobody in that kitchen thought of souring as spoilage. They thought of it as a second dish out of the first pot. And the soft key at number 1 gets the same treatment. Anything you keep in a warm place is going to change. The old ones decided which direction they wanted that change to go, and then let it happen. Number 13, 4 vegetables mixed. Now this one breaks my own rule, and I am putting it in anyway, because Buffalo Bird Woman called it the best dish her people made. She named it 4 vegetables mixed. 1 double handful of beans, and only ever 1, because more than that made gas on a person's stomach. Then a ring of dried squash cut from a 7-fathom string, boiled, lifted out, chopped fine, and put back. Then 4 or 5 double handfuls of meal, half-pounded parched sunflower seed, and half-pounded parched corn. No meat. And she says, why? The sunflower seed gave enough oil to furnish the fat. A little alkali salt if you felt like it, but usually not even that. Number 14. Naxi, the loaf baked in ashes. Green corn, its own husks, and a bed of hot ashes. The kernels come off the cob with a thumbnail while they are still soft and get pounded almost to a pulp. Husks are laid down in 4 or 5 overlapping layers, each layer crossways to the one under it. The pulp is patted onto that husk sheet into a square loaf. The husks fold over the top, and strips of husk tie it 3 ways in each direction. Then a hole gets dug in the deep ashes of the fire pit. Coals go in the bottom. The loaf goes on the coals. More ashes and coals go over the top. 2 hours. No grease, no salt, nothing added at all. The name means buried in ashes and baked. Number 15. Papa soup. Dried meat, dried prairie turnip, and dried corn. Every single thing in this pot is dried, which is the point of it. The Lakota name for the prairie turnip is Timsila, and it grows on prairie that has never been plowed. It flowers in May and June, and the harvest window is narrow, because after it ripens, the whole top of the plant snaps off at the ground and tumbles away like a tumbleweed, scattering its seed and leaving you nothing to find. June in Lakota is named for the moon, when that turnip is ripe. The roots come out, get braided like garlic, and hang to dry. And braided that way, they keep nearly forever. Soak the turnips and the corn overnight, boil the dried meat with them until the turnips go soft. And that is a hot meal in February, built out of 3 things that were harvested in 3 different months. Number 16. Pemmican, dried lean meat, rendered fat, and dried berries. The word comes from the Cree word for fat or grease. Lean meat, usually bison, sliced thin and dried over a slow fire or in hot sun until it is hard and brittle, then pounded between stones into a coarse powder. Melted fat goes in at roughly equal weight. Dried Saskatoon berries or choke cherries go in if you have them. The mixture gets packed into a hide bag, and the bags in the fur trade ran 90 to 100 pounds. 1 pound of it carried the food value of about 4 pounds of fresh meat, which is why the fur trade companies bought it by the ton and why it stayed edible on a canoe for a year. If you make dried meat at home, follow current tested guidelines for drying and handling, without exception. Number 17, wojapi, choke cherries, water, and pounded prairie turnip. Most of what you will see called wojapi today has sugar and cornstarch in it. The Cheyenne River Community's own health program says straight out what the old version was: ripened dark choke cherries and crushed Timsila, and that is all. The berries were dark ripe, so no sweetener was needed, and the crushed turnip did the thickening that cornstarch does now. The berries themselves get ground whole, pits and all, patted into thin round patties and dried until they will keep on a shelf indefinitely. Fresh fruit, turned shelf stable with nothing in it but fruit. Number 18, acorn soup, acorn meal, running water, and hot stones. The Miwok of the Yosemite country cracked and pounded black oak acorns to fine meal in holes worn into the granite bedrock, and those holes are still there. Acorns are full of tannin, and tannin is bitter and hard on a person, so the meal goes into a shallow basin scooped in clean sand, and water gets poured through it over and over, 7 or so applications, the last few of them warm. The sand carries the bitterness down and away, and you cannot set a basket over a fire, so the fire comes to the food. Stones heated near white hot get lifted with wooden tongs and lowered into the gruel and stirred constantly with a paddle so they do not burn through the basket. 2 quarts of fresh leached meal and 6 or 7 quarts of water made 10 or 12 quarts of soup. If you ever gather acorns, work off a reliable regional guide and be certain of your tree before you eat anything. Number 19, camas bulbs, hot stones, and a day and a half of patience. Across the Northwest, families dug camas out of wet meadows, and the pit oven did the rest. Stones heated in a fire, the pit lined and layered with leaves and branches, bulbs in, everything covered with earth, water poured around the edges to raise steam, and after that, it cooks for 24 to 36 hours. That long, slow heat converts a starch in the bulb that a person cannot digest into fructose, which is why baked camas comes out amber and sweet as candy when the raw bulb is nothing of the kind. And here's the part that is not negotiable. Death camas grows in those same meadows, and it will kill you. The old rule, recorded from the Nez Perce and the Shoshone both, was to go into the meadow while the plants are in bloom. When edible camas shows blue and the deadly one does not, and pull the bad ones out then. Never dig a bulb you did not personally see in flower. Number 20, blue corn mush, blue cornmeal, water, and juniper ash. We started this video with a handful of ash out of a southeastern cook fire, and we are going to finish it with a handful out of a Navajo one 2,000 miles away. Roasted blue cornmeal whisked into water, and about a teaspoon of ash from slow-burn juniper branches stirred into the meal first. It is called tanashkish. The ash is not seasoning, though it does deepen the flavor. Juniper ash is alkaline, so it does to that blue meal exactly what the cottonwood ash did to the hidatsa corn and the hickory ash did to the Cherokee bean bread. Gram for gram, the ash also carries a serious amount of calcium, which matters on a table with no dairy on it. 2,000 miles apart, no shared language, and the same answer. So look back down the list at what the third ingredient actually was. At number 1 and number 10 and number 20, it was ash. At number 2 and number 5, it was fire that had already burned days ago. At number 6, it was frost. At number 7 and number 14, it was the husk. The corn came wrapped in. At 18, it was clean sand in a creek. At 19, it was a stone and a day and a half. Not one of those things cost anybody a thing, and not one of them is what we would call an ingredient. That is the actual pattern under all 20 of these. And it is the opposite of how a modern kitchen is set up. We buy the food and we throw away the fire, the ash, the husk, the shell, and the thyme. The old ones went at it from the other end. They treated the ground and the fire and the season as half the recipe. So they only had to come up with 3 things to put in the pot, because the other half was already free and already there. That is why a pot of corn and beans and squash was never a poverty meal. It was the visible part of a system that had been running for 10,000 years, and every hour of work in it happened somewhere you would not think to look, months before anybody sat down to eat. And every one of the 20 is set down that same plain way in the Native American way of the kitchen, from the cook fire to the winter shelf, with the reason underneath each dish written out alongside the doing of it. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera and point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you will enjoy the video right now on screen even more. I can assure you on that. Click it right now, my friend.